All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for those of you who are able to join us. I'm sure we'll have a few more of our members be able to jump on this afternoon. I know it's a busy time of year from everyone. I'm Heather Bushelman, and I'm the program coordinator for Comprehensive School Counseling. I got to see you a couple of times last year since I started in January. So I am excited to be here with you all today and to hear how your start of the year is going. And we have a lot of updates to share today. So we're just going to start right in. So Karen Sheeting is our chairperson for our advisory council. So she was she submitted her why behind it, and she's very experienced. So we are very excited that she'll be representing us for some different things around the state. So Karen, if you wouldn't care, do you want to go ahead and we'll take attendance to see who all's here to start with.
All right, thank you, Heather. Sarah Aiken, Western Kentucky Educational Cooperative. If you'll just unmute and say here if you're here. Thank you. And if I mess up your name, please let me know. I will make it better next time. Elizabeth Barnett from Bullitt County. Elizabeth Barnett. Okay. Kate Barron from Bullitt County.
I'm here.
Thank you. Calvin Brooks, Jefferson County. Calvin Brooks. Okay. Susan Brown from Hardin County. Susan Brown. Right. Tammy Cole from Powell County.
Here.
Thank you. Strauzy Collins from Jefferson County. Strauzy. Okay. Camille DeStefano from Metcalfe County. Camille. Dr. Dye from Western Kentucky University. Dr. Dye. Okay. Dr. Nicole Fields from KDE. Dr. Fields. All right. Beth Duval Fleming from Davies County. Beth Duval Fleming. Malia Gibson from Jefferson County. Malia Gibson. Travis Kern from Bergen County.
Hello. Bergen Independent, yeah.
Bergen Independent, thank you. I know that. Lisa Kimbrell from Jefferson County. Lisa Kimbrell. Carla McCarty from Paintsville. Carla McCarty. Whitney P. from Muhlenberg County. Whitney P. Amy Pike from Meade County. Amy Pike. Stacy Russell from Boone County. Stacy Russell. And then Corinne Scheiding from Williamstown, that is me, so I am here. Amber Schmidt from Kenton County. Amber Schmidt. And then Tammy White from Webster County. Tammy White. All right. Is there anyone's name that I did not call who is supposed to be on the membership list? Do you see that Malia Gibson wrote in the chat that she is here? I did not hear her. Thank you for sending that. All right, Heather. I think that is it.
And thank you, Corinne. And I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name.
That's okay.
So I appreciate you. Thank you for your patience. So thank you again for those of you who have joined us. I know we have a few that are going to come in just a little bit later here in a few minutes. They've reached out to me. So I first want to start with your celebrations and any gratitudes you may have. You're about 3 months into your school year. So unmute and share with our group what are celebrations and a gratitude you may have today.
I'll start. So
thank you, Dr. Fields.
You're welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Fields. I am a community engagement coordinator for the state, but a previous counselor on all 3 levels. So yesterday we had the opportunity to go to Clark County to visit their counselors. So it was really cool to talk to them about some social emotional learning with Miss Heather. She was there, and we did hip hop education counseling to talk to them basically about how to utilize music in your counseling practice and tie that into the social emotional learning. So I have always loved working with counselors in my district and outside the district in Kentucky. So it was really nice to do that. And it's the second time that I got to see them. So it was really fun. So thank you for the invitation. If anybody's on here from Clark County, it was really great to hang out with you again yesterday.
I'll go next. I had a chance to work with about 50 school counselors in another state yesterday, and it was just really nice to be with them, but also really validating to see kind of the differences between what this state has going on and versus what we have going on in Kentucky. And I heard over and over again from school counselors down there, I want to come to Kentucky. You all really have a lot of cool systems. So that's my celebration. Thank you.
Heather, I'll go. I've got a celebration just from our regional cooperative. One thing new that we've started this year at West Kentucky Educational Cooperative is a new school counselor 101. We found that there was a need in our region to host a network for new school counselors. And so any new school counselor has been invited to attend. We've also included any other school counselor that just would like to gain some more knowledge. And so we met yesterday, and it's just very powerful to just talk about things that they are really needing, whether it's training, resources, et cetera, and just having them share their thoughts and ideas. It's always so good to be with school counselors at any time.
I agree. Absolutely.
At our school, we have been doing School Safety Week this week. And then, of course, next week is Red Ribbon Week. So we've had lots of fun little activities, and it's been really exciting to see the kids learn and take things seriously in a fun, positive way. So we are ending with a pep rally tomorrow with the ripple effect for Safe Schools Week, and doing chain links and tying our entire school together by having each student write on a chain link something positive, and doing it per classroom. And then at the end of the day at the pep rally, we are putting them all together for the entire school and hanging it through to start off Red Ribbon Week next week for Life is a Party. So it's been a lot of fun.
So Corinne, how many students are in your school? So how long will this chain link be?
We have not quite 400, so it's like we have like 386 at our school. I don't think it's going to connect through the primary and intermediate hallways. So I think we're going to start it by grade level and then try to connect some of the grade levels just by where they're located in the building. So we're trying to at least do a primary and intermediate. So
you'll have to send me a picture. Like,
yes, I will.
think that would be amazing. So,
Yes.
thank you for sharing. Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I've been lifted up by seeing a lot of our seniors getting some acceptance letters in, seeing them ponder where they're going to go. That's been a beautiful experience from my side of it. And we've got a FAFSA night coming up Monday. And so it's just been really, it's given me a lot of energy seeing them get their lives, the next step in order. So that's been pretty cool.
I came late to the party. Can you all hear me okay? I want to say I'm super excited because our school district hired someone at district level for our school counselors in Meade County School District. So that has been an amazing step forward.
So you now have a lead counselor district-wide to help.
Yes, and she's in this meeting.
Great. That is exciting. That's progress. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else?
I'm just glad that we're back to a halfway normal school year. So far, not a lot of absences for COVID.
All right. Anybody else before we move on? Want to make sure we celebrate. Okay. All right. Well, we'll just move ahead and feel free to share at any point, throughout our presentation. So going first today, we have, of course, you've seen Dr. Fields and Dr. Sweeney. They are with us from KDE, and they're going to give you some updates that pertain to counselors from our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging team. So I'll turn it over to you all.
Sure. Yes, so it's really good to be with everybody here. So many familiar faces and friends, and we just love our school counselors. So many of the updates that we discussed today, that Dr. Fields and I discussed today, you are going to see yourselves woven throughout those projects, for many of those projects. So I want to start with the Equity Playbook. Kentucky is the first state in the country, the entire country, to offer school districts and school leaders, which includes school counselors, of course, personalized executive coaching. So when you hear that, I have sat in your role, and we do not get coached very often. So a lot of the role is trying to figure it out on your own. And we preach having a network and having a PLC and doing those things, but we rarely get one-on-one time to just really focus on ourselves as a human being first, and then also as a professional. And that's what the Equity Playbook does. It really brings in this personalized executive coaching, which focuses on the whole person. And then it also allows you to identify a problem, a practice that you want to tackle, and then helps you build the efficacy to really turn that problem or practice around. So very excited about that. And again, we specifically included school counselors in that project. This is a project that just launched for the first time. We have 3 cohorts. So cohort 1 is underway. We'll get cohort 2 in January and cohort 3 in the fall. So if your district has not signed up for the Equity Playbook, please follow up by sending me an email along with Dr. Fields, and we will work with you to see if that's a possibility from your district. All right. Dr. Fields, anything to add on that?
I think you summed it all up.
All right, great. All right, so next we are working on, we are so fortunate. We're working with KEDC, which is one of our regional educational co-ops. And we're also partnering with University of Louisville on creating 6 asynchronous modules for educators. And these modules will all revolve around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And we specifically know that there are so many ethical standards for school counselors that revolve around DEIB, So we are working to create 2 of those 6 modules specifically on building a comprehensive school counseling program and framework for you. So very excited about that. That will be, you will also get micro credentials for not only participating, but also completing those modules. Speaking of modules, we're working with Kentucky Education Television on creating an asynchronous module with a micro credential on safe spaces. So we know that schools can be safe havens for all students, regardless of the background. But it's not something that is not, it just comes to us, right? We have to be intentional about creating psychologically safe spaces for all. And so this module, this asynchronous module with KET will do just that. And we're so excited about the folks that we've gotten to interview for that module, along with the just all of the work that's gone behind that. We've gotten video of real students, real counselors, real folks just doing the real work in everyday life and within our school buildings in Kentucky. Next, we are working on something called the A4 modules. And this is, so if your district is not participating in the Equity Playbook, these modules really help kind of introduce this idea of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. They are really reflective modules so that you can reflect on kind of who you are, along with how you will support all students in the future. So again, really excited about that. Our regional cooperatives can offer those modules to you. So we have 9 regional DEIB coordinators. So you can reach out to your cooperative, and if your school is interested in having that professional development offered to your staff, that regional DEIB coordinator would be happy to come to you. Dr. Fields, if there's anything you want to jump in on, that's fine. Feel free.
Yes, I was waiting for you to get to a pause. So a
Yes,
couple things. A couple things. We do have the DEIB newsletter. So if you're not receiving that, please let us know so you can get linked into that, because there's information that is on that newsletter that's not necessarily in the counseling newsletter, but together it's one big marriage. So you know what's happening in the DEIB world. We have our podcast that's coming. It's on hold right now, but it's coming. It's called Lifting Kentucky's Voices. So we in DEIB team, our vision is that every educator and student has a sense of belonging. So we want to let Kentucky know about what we are doing as counselors, what we're doing as educators to really build that sense of belonging for our students. And so we have this platform for them to let their voices be heard. In addition to, back to the newsletter, we like to feature what are you doing in your schools that are making a great impact when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So if you think of anything that you think will be of interest, shoot me an email. I would love to feature you in our newsletter. And lastly, I just got off the phone call with the University of Louisville. They have a phenomenal program that stay tuned to your emails. They'll be coming soon about an opportunity for especially for high school counselors, for your students to get free dual credit classes. And so this is important because it's free. So we want to make sure that you know that. So that is coming soon. So I'll be working very closely with Heather to get that information to you as well. But do not hesitate to reach out to us about how we can support you. As previous counselors, we love being back in the schools and helping, whether it's through the A1 through A4 modules or any type of collaboration that you can see. So just want to add those pieces out there. Thank you.
Yes, and the beautiful thing about the Cardinal Bridge program that Dr. Fields just mentioned, not only, of course, do kids get access to free dual credit courses, but they also get their books paid for. And if they get above a 3.0 for their first 2 classes in high school, they get automatic admission to University of Louisville. So really cool opportunity. Just a few other things from me. Heather is doing such a great job. She's leading a team that's working on a social emotional learning implementation guide for Kentucky educators, and doing an awesome job on that. She's also leading grant work on calming spaces. We've offered 9 different districts $10,000 each so that they can begin implementing and creating calming spaces in their schools and districts. And we know what the research says. We know that emotional regulation is one of the best predictors on post-secondary success. So why not start in elementary, middle, and high? Amy, your old counseling office quickly comes to mind with your little counseling corner and calming space in there. I vividly remember that because I could feel when I walked into your office how you were able to help and connect kids that were dysregulated and just show them, hey, take a pause, take a moment, right? Here are some things that you can kind of manipulate if you would like. Here are some ways for you to really become regulated. So you not only taught emotional regulation for them, so self-regulation, but you also taught co-regulation, and that's what this grant seeks to do. We believe that the arts are that is a universal language, and so our team has sponsored a second campus for Governor School for the Arts for the first time ever. That just happened at the University of Kentucky. So previously, there were 256 Kentucky students that had access to the summer enrichment program, and now we have well over 500. And so we're just really honored to be able to support that and fund that program for more and more Kentucky students. Just a few other things. Don't forget about your equity dashboard, counselors. That is unbelievable data. Other states are jealous that you have access to this data. It really gives you a big picture of what's happening in terms of equity, and allows you to quickly see where programs are equitable and then where there could be some disproportionality. And then we've got an amazing tool that helps you analyze where root causes are when you do come across inequities. So please don't forget about that. Let's see. We did announce that our team is also funding advanced placement exams for all students in Kentucky. So no student will pay more than $10 for an AP exam this year. And any student receiving free or reduced lunch will pay $0. So those are just a few updates about our work. There are many, many more. As I mentioned, we love you and we see you, and you are woven throughout many of the projects we do. We know the value that you bring to your schools. We know that you have that opportunity to see the big picture and that you always do what's best for kids. So thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for both of you for sharing that information. All right, any questions for Dr. Sweeney or Dr. Fields? Okay, so I wanted just to start today by us thinking about self-care and what it looks like within your buildings. So I want to think about, and I would love for you to share what's working. So thinking about your staff and your students, we know there's a lot of increases with different behavioral needs, SEL needs, mental health. What are some things you all are doing within your buildings, initiating, coaching, modeling for your staff and students for self-care? So if you would like to unmute and share with our group, I know I would love to share some of these ideas in my newsletter with other counselors around the state, because I know this is a big topic right now that people are searching for different ideas just to help our staff and students every day.
So for us, it has been infusing fun back into the building. And so what myself and our principal and assistant principal have been doing is we'll do random call-ins and we'll ask random trivia questions, and then the teachers along with their students will have to be caller number 10 into the office, and then whoever does wins a prize. And so it was really, when we started, it was meant for the staff, but now the students have been getting extra involved into it. And so that's been a lot of fun. assistant principal has been doing a guess who each week. So all of our staff members had to fill out a questionnaire about like their favorite color, their favorite foods, favorite things to do. And so he puts clues up each day of the week. And then on Friday, it's for students and staff to guess. So that's been a lot of fun. And then also just some of the more practical things like making sure the staff know, we use Class Dojo for communication at school. Set your quiet hours and do not respond after hours. And for some of them, it was just, okay, well, I have permission. We could have done that all along, but actually just saying it out loud and say, don't respond to emails after hours. Wait until the morning. It can wait. Spend time with your family. Shut it off when you go home. So just having those intentional conversations and putting a little bit of fun back in has been really great for our school.
Yeah, I like the intentional talk about you can shut off your email. You don't have to check it. I know they appreciate that from your administrators. Yeah, and it's easy. Like that's something you don't have to buy or purchase or anything like that. That's something just free. So it builds great culture. Okay, thank you. Okay, what else are you doing in your building for your staff, students, or both? Right, I know you're doing great things. Are you all calling it anything different besides self-care? I'm curious because a lot of the different counselors I talk to, they are trying to get away from calling some of your initiatives you're doing self-care because it seems to be overgeneralized now to calling it like mental maintenance or personal resilience. So I'm curious, are any of you using a different language when you do talk about getting through the day, being able to function, handling stress, coping skills?
Heather, from the regional level, we have actually changed it to any trainings, anything that we do that we're talking about this, we've changed it to personal resiliency. We just kind of felt like that the word self-care, the word adult well-being, those types of things almost over the last couple of years have become weaponized against us as educators, that we felt like, we have all of these things on our plate. We're doing all of these different things. And that if we weren't taking care of ourselves, if we weren't doing all these things, was just kind of making us feel even worse about ourselves. So we've sort of changed that to personal resiliency because, one, that just sounds so much more uplifting. It's more positive. And really the ones in our regional cooperative have been really responsive to personal resiliency. They understand it is self-care is what we're really talking about, but it's just been a really receptive, just kind of changing that wording for them has been very helpful.
Yeah. Sarah, this is Thomas and Heather. I think the terminology and words certainly have power, and it's always great to check in on those words. But I'll tell you now, in the political climate in which we live in, whether it's the Commonwealth of Kentucky or across this country, and I have the pleasure of working with a nationwide organization of state departments of ed and ed cooperatives in general. In our states that want to weaponize words and use these terms, they're going to do it anyway. Now, if there is, I like the suggestion, but here in Kentucky, they're going to, I'm not saying all of our lawmakers, many of our lawmakers are going to link personal care, resiliency, SEL, ASCA, school counselors, all into this business of critical race theory that no one knows anything about. And they're certainly going to do it during this election season. And if the and again, Sarah, you're right on the money. If the terminology is new to better identify what we're doing, we change it. There are some states, I kid you not in Nebraska, for example, they can't use the term equity. People have weaponized it so badly that even the people who've used equity think it's a bad word. And so if what we do can be better described and more effectively described using another term, I would say, yes, definitely do it. And I think that should be your question. But if our question is to say, hey, let's call it something else to keep our lawmakers, off our heels, it'll work for a while. But those lawmakers and parents and other constituents and other stakeholders who don't want to do this work or who think this is bad work, they're going to find a way to criticize it.
Those are good reminders, Dr. Tucker. Thank you, especially this year. So, yeah. So is anybody else calling it something different, or is it just still self-care when you do talk about it with your staff? And I know Sarah mentioned personal resilience.
So at our school, one of the counselors in Jefferson County Elementary School counselors, she started Wellness Wednesday.
Okay.
And so she shares it with all of us, and we make it personal to our schools and send it out. And it has strategies for self-care, talks about setting intentions and all that. So we do it every Wednesday. She shares it with all of the elementary counselors who are set up for it. We share it out to our staff and make it personal for our own. And so we do self-care intentions and just things that they can do to be wellness. And we also put out information if they need to get counseling services or anything for themselves for our staff. So.
Yeah. So it sounds very personalized for what you need, correct? Like within your building and for your staff. That's great. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So then that leads me to my next question. As counselors, who is taking care of you all? I know typically we are the experts. People seek out for self-care, personal resilience. And a lot of times we may forget to take care of ourselves. I think people assume we know how to handle everything because on the surface, we do. We are very calm. We're collected when anything happens in our buildings, which is why we're school counselors, right? So I just want to just as a hypothetical, just think to yourself, who is taking care of you in your building? Is it you have a colleague that you can, talk with, you can vent to? Maybe it's another counselor, it's a mental health provider, maybe it's a teacher, it's an admin. Is it you schedule time every day just to take 10 minutes just to breathe without answering an email or a call or the door? So just kind of think to yourself every day, how are you getting through your day and just having somebody who you can go to that does support you and that gets your world, even if it's not a counselor, but somebody that at least has a clue of what we do deal with every single day. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, because the last thing we want to do is us burn out by putting out other people's fires and stress. And because I know you all are amazing. So, and keep that in mind for, your co-counselors you all work with in your district, in your regions. So just, we need to make sure that we do take care of each other. So we'll get into some updates. We have several. So most of you have seen this by now. It's been, I know, in the Counselor Connection for 2 months at least, maybe 3. It's been in the superintendent's information, principals. It's been on a lot of our KDE publications. But Senate Bill 102 was recently updated this past summer. And if you remember last year, we submitted a use of time as school counselors to KDE just to show what our percentages were, the activities we were doing, our funding, our positions. And now we're doing that again this year. It's a little bit more specific, but they've also added some of the other school-based mental health providers that might be hired by your districts. So that would include any social workers, school-based therapist, or your school psychologist. So all of those jobs are now mentioned within this bill to start collecting some data and some information about, just to start seeing what are these stakeholders doing within our schools. If we're hiring them, what types of activities are they doing with kids, meetings, different, things like that based on their position, of course, because we all know we have a few different roles, and some of them do intersect. So based on that legislation, your superintendent for your district, and I hope if you have not been asked to submit your use of time, make sure you reach out because it's due in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. So we are getting the word out as much as we can before November 1st to ensure we get as many different districts already submitting it by November 1st before we have to give gentle reminders, of course, because we do have, over 171 districts in our state. But ultimately, this is what your superintendents will be reporting on the template that's been provided. They are going to provide the number of mental health service providers in the district. Your community-based contractors that you do have different, like maybe an MOA with or something else, it has to be somebody within the district that you are actually funding. So that's a little bit different. What position do they hold? Where are they placed? Their certification, the source of funding, and of course, a summary of the job duties they do have, and the percentage of time that they devote to each one of those activities. So again, being the first year for some of the other mental health provider information, this is the first year. It's going to be pretty broad. And we already know for next year some tweaks that we do want to make as much as we are able to with what I know our districts can report to us based on the legislative language. That's what we have to always tie this back to. So I know, for example, school psychologists, several of them do a lot more special education type work and activities. So their data is going to start showing up as a little bit different versus a social worker or a school-based, therapist. And that's okay. As always, our use of time is not meant to be punitive. It is not meant to be, kind of a gotcha that you're not doing your activities or your use of time like you're recommended to. It is to help us grow and to show progress with what are we using our school counselors for? Are they doing the recommended use of time that is in our Kentucky legislation? I know, Dr. Sweeney, Dr. Fields mentioned Kentucky a lot. We are very fortunate that we are one of the few states we actually have a use of time for our counselors. A lot of states do not, and they always ask us, how did you get that into your law? What did that process look like? Now, is it perfect yet? No, but we are taking our small victories to start changing and shifting some of that language surrounding your recommended activities, your use of time with students. So this data helps that. So we can start looking at statewide, by region, by district, how can we support you just to make sure that you are having your use of time? What can we help with your district, your superintendents, your administrators, when they do assign different activities? What are some things to think about? Because ultimately, it's what is best for kids. And especially as school counselors, you all have a very different skill set than really anybody else within your setting. And we want to make sure that you are seeing kids. So this data does support that. And here, there's a template that your district, of course, will copy and will complete, and the superintendent sign off on it. And then they send it to us. And then we will analyze the data, and we should have a report usually by the first of the year. And it'll be exciting to show 2 years of data to see what are some ways we are progressing, what are some ways, we really haven't changed much. And of course, there could be some decreases. and some things that were positive from last year. So just make sure within your districts, your regions, that you are really asking questions of making sure you're asked about your use of time submission, because like I said, it is due in 2 weeks. So we can start analyzing just to support and to advocate for what our school-based mental health providers are recommended to do. So are there any questions surrounding the use of time submission?
I have two, Heather.
Yes, Kate.
So I guess the first one isn't a question, but a comment. And I wish Elizabeth Barnett was here so she could back me up. But it was really frustrating for us in our district. So we as counselors, like at the middle, the high school, and the elementary level, we got together and we created a plan, you know, for how we were going to fill out the use of time survey, like how we were going to track our time and then use that in the survey. And then also we worked together to come up with a list of all of our other responsibilities that we didn't feel were totally related to the school counselors. But when the data was released, I guess there was like a comment made about that sometimes like 504 meetings can be counselor related. And I agree, like if I'm attending one to advocate for a student, or if I'm attending an ARC meeting to advocate for a student, I would mark that on my use of time survey as, you know, an indirect or direct service. But we chair in our district, we chair all of those meetings, which I feel like is not appropriate. And so when we kind of came back with, you know, we're chairing all these meetings, it was, well, we were told that you misunderstood, and that is directly related to student, you know, that is a school counseling. So it was really frustrating for us because we felt like, and we're like, well, we sat in on that meeting too, and we heard what, you know, what was said about it can be misconstrued and it can actually be related to students, but that's not what we put, you know, like we did know what we were talking about when we filled out the survey. So I would really ask and appreciate if we could, because that to me, it just felt like it was, they were like, well, that's not a concern because it can be. So that was one thing. And then the second thing is there like any course of action for districts who fall pretty low on the appropriate use of time or direct services?
So for your second question, we'll start with that one. So what we're doing now that we have 2 years of data is we're going to start looking at what support are we able to offer. So when we talk to superintendents, administrators, we can show them now 2 years of progression to see, okay, these are, you know, these are your counselors' use of time. These are the activities that are, you know, appropriate, that are inappropriate. What's some support that we can offer to start shifting some of those activities to more appropriate to get that use of time up to 60% direct, 20% indirect. So it's really going to be reaching out and collaborating. And then I know here in a few minutes, we'll talk about some trainings I'm already doing to be proactive and talking through a lot of these issues I know that you just brought up that we know statewide is happening. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. But yeah, so as far as the course of action, it's really just reaching out individually by district, by region, to start looking at what does our data show us that's being turned in, and to make sure people just are informed about, you know, this is what 60% should look like in your building for your school counselor, because a lot of people may not really realize what that may look like. And like the indirect services, some of them may not know, like you just said, what's appropriate, what's inappropriate.
Yeah,
so
and making like real lasting changes. I know.
Yes.
It was in our particular district, it was a huge thing of the elementary school counselors should not be chairing all these ARC meetings and 504s and PSPs and everything else. So I know that they took that to heart a bit, but then their solution or what they came up with was not something that actually, you know, it couldn't really work when we put it into place. So, so actually coming up with like sustainable, long lasting, effective change.
Yes. That's what we're hoping with this, being a statewide use of time. And now that they've added the other school-based mental health providers, it's going to give us more of a bigger picture of what's happening in our state. And of course, it's going to provide a baseline, especially for them being added this first year, to start looking at how are our kids being served? What are they doing with students? What is recommended? What are some talking points we can look at to possibly make some legislative changes, provide better guidance? And of course, to your first point about the ARCs and the 504s, ASCA recommends it is an inappropriate activity for counselors, period, to chair any ARCs or 504s. So that's one of the big things we are working on as well with this data is between that and the building assessment coordinator. So again, I'm sure you've heard me train a lot. It's all about small victories. And we have a lot of districts right now who are shifting those activities based on their counselor's use of time. They are able to share, they're spending 10 hours a week chairing meetings, and kids are not getting served, or they don't have access to their counselors when they have severe needs. So that's a concern. So by looking at that data of how many hours truly counselors are spending on the inappropriate activities when they could be seeing kids, being accessible, that's what we're really focusing on. So yes, we're looking at, sustaining this long-term change, because ultimately, with as many needs as our kids have right now, we have to do what's best for them. So
yeah. I think it would also be really beneficial to have like a training with counselors or send out a document about here are some ways that you can track your time. I mean, I got thrown into the special rotation this year, and I have a pad of paper with me, and every time I get a call on the walkie that I have to say, nope, I'm teaching right now, I'm keeping a tally mark so that I can come back and say, hey, next semester you need to take me off because this is how many kids I couldn't assist.
I'd be happy to send you some samples that I know we've used in some of our trainings. If you want to glance at that, Kate, just some ideas, because there is no clear-cut form, but I can send you some ideas for just what works for you. That's the main thing, is what works for you to track your time. So thank you for asking that. So a few statewide initiatives. I know Dr. Sweeney mentioned the SEL Implementation Guide. So our regional cooperatives have created a document, and it's been a year now that we've been just facilitating with them, encouraging the work, helping them. Ultimately, our SEL specialists are leading this work for our state, because right now this is what's needed. And they are creating an implementation guide. We actually meet next week for our monthly meeting, and it is going to include different evidence-based practices for districts, for school-wide implementation, for classroom, and it's going to tie into our United We Learn initiative for Kentucky. And so it is very exciting to start seeing this work start getting not necessarily finalized, but we're making a lot of progress, and that should be released this year. So as soon as that is, then of course you all will know. But again, it's just ultimately going to help us know, why is this important? What's the research behind it show us from Nation and from Kentucky? And then what are some best practices we are, recommending, and our specialists are recommending statewide that we do to make sure SEL is embedded in everything and it's not seen as a separate entity with education. So we're making progress with that. My individual learning plan committee, we met today. We have monthly meetings. We are updating the documents. I know Dr. Sweeney created those. I guess it's been about 4 years ago now. And we're just updating some different lessons, some activities. We are also adding an elementary pre-ILP playbook, so that when elementary school, we can start using that language of individual learning plan. This is what it does. We're also going to provide some talking points to start getting more stakeholder buy-in of what it truly should be doing within our schools for our students, especially planning post-secondary. Of course, there's a lot of social emotional learning embedded with everything that's included with our ILP. So some of those documents are going to be released very soon as updates, so that way you all can take them and use them within your buildings if you're middle and high school. In elementary, because like I said, we'll have an elementary playbook. And then one of my big focuses this year is, of course, like I just mentioned, the use of time for our school counselors. Since I began in January, I can't believe it's been almost a year. And I know me just coming out of the schools, our use of time is at the forefront of how do we help kids and what are we supposed to be doing versus what have we always done? And it is a shift. It's very small victories and starting to get that paradigm shift of taking counselors out of chairing meetings to seeing more kids. So I've been, just going around the state virtually, in person, presenting for the regional cooperatives, who are amazing to work with, by the way. They are, they're just so collaborative. And then there's different districts I've been into where we are presenting about the use of time, the legislation you just saw. We're talking about what does those percentages mean? So what is a direct service? What is an indirect service? And what is in that other category? So that way, a lot of our administrators and superintendents can start thinking through, this is what that means in legislation, because a lot of them are very honest, that they maybe didn't know, or they didn't really know what it could look like. So we're sharing stories from some other districts who have had success giving their counselors back to the kids and having more access to them. I know with Lieutenant Governor Coleman's Student Voice teams that she did, the number one thing students want is access to our counselors, which to me as a high school kid, if you want your counselor, I think that's amazing and the ultimate compliment from a teenager. So we are working hard to make sure, we are thinking through how to shift those activities off of our counselors, because like I said, it's recommended those are not appropriate activities for our counselors to chair meetings for 504s or the ARC meetings. So we are working hard, to do that. And then I'm also collaborating with our regional cooperatives. I use them a lot, as you can tell, because they are just amazing. But after Christmas, I'm going to do a train the trainer initiative for each co-op, that they are now going to start training about how to build a comprehensive school counseling program from scratch. For step by step, here's where you start, here's where you end, and here's where you go every year. So I'm going to do a train the trainer for them to then go back to their co-ops and train very flexibly within districts for their regional, cooperative districts that they do share, just so that way we get the message out as much as possible of this is how you build your comprehensive program. And so, because I know that's a lot of the questions that have coming up this year, is a lot of people want to get back to that proactive school counseling that we know we are supposed to be doing. So that's an exciting thing that's going to be happening after Christmas, to have more options for you all in your districts and around the state, just to get access to how to build up your comprehensive school counseling program. These are our school counseling cadres, so make sure you have the dates written down. Our first one is Tuesday, and I'm beyond excited. Dr. Carolyn Stone will be with us. Of course, she has worked with ASCA for decades. She's written every legal and ethical consideration document. She's done trainings around the world. She was ASCA president at one point. She will join us from 9 to 12 just to talk about legal and ethical considerations. ASCA just updated their document this summer, so she's going to talk about those additions, plus some Kentucky topics that counselors have submitted. So I've included the form for you. If you'd like to submit any questions, you are still able to. but she is going to, I know for sure, focus on some different suicide prevention, legal considerations to think about with school counselors, LGBTQIA plus issues that are happening with confidentiality, and some guidance around that. And then some special education discussions about counselors being written into the IEPs. So I'm really excited for her, because when she does talk, it's very basic and it's down to earth, where it's easy to understand. So if you haven't signed up yet, you can do that through your regional cooperative, and it will be recorded as well. And then, of course, December 6th, we will have Dr. Fields and Dr. Florence Chang, who are, of course, part of my DEIV team. They're going to show you the equity dashboard and how it relates to counseling to use data-driven practices. So if you haven't got to really use the equity dashboard a whole lot, in December, they will show you in depth how to get into it and use that data to drive your counseling practices. And then I will touch base on some updates to our Kentucky framework as well. And in February, for our summit, the school counselors for MTSS will be with us virtually. So that is exciting to have that national group. I think we're going to have 2 of their presenters join us, because based on our input statewide, that was one of the topics counselors are needing, is where do they fit in with MTSS? What are some systems and some models that they could look at with their practices? So I'm excited they're going to be with us. And then June 6th, we're still determining what the topic will be. These are our Calming Space winners. We just, they were announced probably 3 months ago now, but we had, like Dr. Sweeney, briefly mentioned, we had 9 districts or schools, because you could do either one when you applied, but these were our winners for this year. And next year, we are releasing another round of applications. So after Christmas, check our competitive grants website. Just kind of check it periodically. Those applications will be back on there, as we are going to award another 9 award winners with $10,000 each, either as a district or as a school. So be on the lookout for that if that's something you or your district or somebody you know may be interested in. But these models for our winners, once they get everything implemented, they are going to be great to go see, and to see how they're implementing it, the family engagement piece behind it. And of course, they're going to collect data to sustain it beyond just the 1 year of the funding. So it's exciting to see this take off. Our Kentucky framework for school counseling, in Kentucky is what is recommended for our school counselors that we are supposed to be doing within our work every day. And so we're going to have a few updates by December for our next cadre. And the legislation, of course, will be updated, like with the use of time we just talked about. The newly released ASCA ethical standards will now be in that document, so you have that. And then I'm working on a template of a step-by-step flowchart of how to create a comprehensive school counseling program sample. So that way people can start looking at number 1, where do I start? And then if I've already done number 1 and 2, then I'm ready for number 3. Because I have a lot of counselors who would really like to see something very specific of a timeline sample of what this could look like long term. So that is going to be added in December. And then something else I would like us to consider is a statewide mission and vision statement to put into our framework. I think it's important as a state that, we're all thinking the same way with what is our vision for school counseling, what is our mission statement for school counseling, so that way we always know that is where our work should lead. And that's where we start. So feedback is very needed and appreciated. So if you have any ideas of wording, phrases, anything that you would like to see considered within that mission and vision, just email those to me. So that way I can start piecemealing together some ideas you have, and I'll keep you updated because I would like our advisory council to be the ones who ultimately lead that work for our vision and mission to put into our framework for our school counselors. Because as we know, when we build a comprehensive program, that's one of the first things we do is think about what's our vision, what's our mission. So we are also working on, with collaboration with our Kentucky MTSS KDE colleagues, an MTSS model for school counseling in Kentucky. We know there are some national models out there, and a lot of you I know are using multi-tiered systems of support within your own counseling services. But this is going just to help us to narrow down what in Kentucky do we value with MTSS and what are best practices, what is a model for us to consider. So I'll show you really fast what we're looking at. So like I said, our school counselors for MTSS will be with us in February presenting. So between myself and Melissa Wainwright, who is with Kentucky MTSS, we are creating a Kentucky version of this. So with input from, of course, school counselors from MTSS and their endorsement. So within this one, you can see, it does use the ASCA model language, which I really appreciate because that's what our Kentucky framework is based on. And of course, it talks about different services, direct and indirect, which we know is part of our recommendation use of time and part of your comprehensive program. So if you all have any input about how your MTSS model looks at your school, you are more than welcome to email that to me about, this is what my program looks like at tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So that way we can start considering that when we're creating this document. And it will be ready by February when we do our statewide summit. So that way, as Kentucky, we will have a version that is personalized for our state based on Kentucky MTSS and, of course, what is nationally recommended for us. So your counseling videos, I've gotten 3 of them, and they are currently being just looked at and edited. So they're not released just yet, but they're getting close. But these are some of the topics that still need to be claimed. Again, let me refresh your memory. I would love to showcase our advisory council because I know you all being a part of this group, you are experts, you have genius, like a lot of our counselors do, but being within this group, I would love to showcase you as leaders among the state. So these are just 15 to 20-minute quick webinar videos. Just if I need help with small groups, I can click on your video and see a quick snapshot of you talking through what does creating a small group look like and what do those results look like. So that's kind of the purpose, is so when we do think about releasing the template for comprehensive school counseling, these videos are going to be great for counselors to also reference. So if any of these jump out to you, please email me. And of course, and then I'll give you the logistics of how to create it. But ultimately, I would love to involve as many of you as possible, just to showcase you as our advisory council. So please email me if any of these topics are kind of your genius and you're passionate about it. Okay, so that's all the updates that I had. I know it was a lot being our first meeting this year. We've had a lot happen since last meeting. So I want to just open the floor up to all of you. What are some questions you may have, some concerns that are happening within your settings that you might want to bring up today?
It's too late for this year, but next year I would love to just like have some school counselors talk about the unique things they do for Red Ribbon Week, because I feel like my ideas are old and boring and I can't think outside the red ribbon box anymore.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Kate. Yeah.
I would love to hear ideas on in this post-COVID time. I call it post-COVID. Obviously, COVID's still going on. But it's a different time. We're back to more normal-looking school, but obviously everything's changed. Apathy, turning assignments in, it's a big struggle on nearly every level, and not as much on the elementary level, but with middle and high, it's really huge. And I don't know, it's different. So it's a struggle, and I know it's not just at my school. So I would just be interested in hearing how schools are tackling that.
Yeah, that's a good question, Travis. I can tell you from when I came out of my school in December, it was happening in elementary. They struggled to just to complete assignments and understand the importance of tests and grades, and having to almost shift to relearning what does that look like and how does my work then result in my achievement, and things like that. So yeah, so great question. Does anybody have anything they're doing with their students to help with what Travis is asking? Okay, well, if anybody thinks of something that you have found that maybe we could send even to our whole group, or if you would like to email me, that'd be fine as well. That anything you have found to help with some of that apathy, like Travis was mentioning, because it's happening across the state. So which is a concern.
Heather, I haven't got to dive in with it yet, so I'm not. We purchased Panorama as a district this year, and actually just finished last week. Our teachers went through and rated every single student on SEL competencies, and I am just starting to dive into that information. But within Panorama, the reason I wanted to share it is because within Panorama, there's a playbook, and you can tailor the different interventions and things to what areas are showing as of need. And so I am seeing a lot of like self-management and emotional expression is what I've seen just on the surface level. But what I'm able to do is I'm trying to tailor some of my classroom counseling lessons to that too, not just my tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, but my tier 1 interventions within the classrooms. So again, I'm not advocating for that program just yet because I don't have a lot of experience with it, but from what I see at the surface level, it's given me specific interventions to do in the classroom and to give to my teachers to be able to do within morning meetings and things like that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Corinne. We used it for a couple of years, and it gives you ideas to do for your MTSS, essentially, not just as a counselor, but school wide. So you're exactly right. So yeah, I'd be excited to see after you dig into it a little bit more, kind of how you're using that within your MTSS and for some of those ideas. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that.
We have kind of had a similar issue with our fifth graders, and when I've been doing classroom guidance with them, they're just kind of the most difficult bunch with just not really like caring and making fart jokes every 5 seconds. And so I was really struggling with that. And one day someone asked about the Holocaust, and so we talked about the Holocaust, and they were exceptional that entire lesson. So there's a book called Goodnight Stories for Rebels, and it's all about people who overcame different things to become, the greatest or to achieve something. Like they've got athletes, they've got paraplegics who have won the Special Olympics. They've got Simone Biles in there, but then they also just have like everyday average people who have accomplished great things. And so I brought that book to school and just randomly have started during 5th grade guidance, letting a kid open up the book. We read about the person in the book. We have a giant TV and we like pull up their pictures and we talk about, you know, what are some of the challenges that this person's faced? What was probably really hard for them? How would you have felt in that situation? And there's, I mean, we talked about Ruby Bridges and, you know, how hard it must have been to walk into the school when you felt like no one wanted you there. And how does that compare to not wanting to come to class because you feel like you don't have any friends? And I mean, knock on laminated wood, it's really made a huge difference in classroom guidance. But again, I mean, it doesn't have any data or research. It's just Kate based right now.
Yeah. So Kate, you said it's make a difference. Are you noticing some behavioral changes in your students, like some different perceptions and like empathy happening?
Yes. So what I have noticed, one, is that kids are a lot more forthcoming with stuff that they don't think is okay. At first, it kind of created more issues because kids were like telling on people. So then it became like, okay, how do you stand up for yourself? Like, let's read a story about someone who used their voice. But yeah, it's slow coming, but I see it coming. I definitely noticed a change with the kids where they are telling each other, like, that's not okay. And I said something one day about, you know, like, if you use those words at home, that's fine. Like, I can't do anything about what you do at home, but you can't use those words here. And there was a kid the other day that I heard that said, Miss Barron said you can say that at home, but you are not allowed to say it here. So they're listening for sure.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. What support do you all need? Is there anything happening within your settings, your districts, that you might just need some help with, some support? Yeah, please share. Okay, well, if you think of something, you are more than welcome to email me, because ultimately I am here to support everything you do, because you are the heartbeat of your building. You are valued. And of course, like we talked about at the very beginning, please make sure that you are taking care of yourself. Take a breath every day, even if it's for just 5 minutes. Build that into your calendar. Whether it's self-care, it's personal resilience, whatever you want to call it. And I do hope you have somebody that does support you, that when you need it, you can just talk with, just troubleshoot different issues happening. And if you ever need me, I'm happy to jump on a Zoom or whatever you need to do that with you. If you need somebody, absolutely. And of course, I'd love to always come visit and see what you're doing at your schools, and anybody else in your district. If you all know, I know you've shared some great things happening today. Continue to share those. I'd love to put you in my counselor connection to share that statewide, because I know counselors are always wanting to collaborate and see what other people are doing, to see the great things happening for our kids. So yeah, continue to share those things that y'all are doing. But our next meeting is on December 8th. So from 2 to 3:30 again, Eastern time. So before then, if there's a topic that you would like to include, of course, in our meetings, you are more than welcome to send me that. And the other couple things to please send feedback on is Are there any words or phrases you would like to include with our statewide mission and vision for school counselors? And the second thing is anything you might want to send for Dr. Carolyn Stone to maybe talk about next week, to touch on for legal and ethical considerations. And the third thing is anything within your MTSS that you would like to share with me to start thinking through for our Kentucky version of what that's going to look like for school counseling. So a little bit of homework. Okay, well, does anybody have anything else for today?
I had one thing really quick for Dr. Sweeney. He mentioned that no student across the state would pay more than $10 for an AP test. And I wondered how we access that. Like, I mean, like if my students sign up through AP, how does that billing work? This is my first year in the high school role, and I'm learning this on the fly, and then this is a new program. So I just kind of want to know as I do that.
Yeah, good question, Travis. I actually, because I'm not sure if Dr. Sweeney's still available with us. I think he had another meeting. I can send you the information that we have that should have in there how to take care of the billing. So I don't mind to email that to you if that's okay. Okay, right. I'm writing that down for you, Travis. So that way, but yes, but we do have an agreement with them to make sure in Kentucky that's going to happen. That it's not more than $10. So I can send you some of that information. So, and I'll copy Dr. Sweeney on the email as well. Yep, that's a great question. It's very exciting. Okay, anything else? Okay. Well, it was good to see you all after a few months off for not getting to have our meetings. But like I said, between now and December 8th, just send me some of the feedback we talked about. As always, email me with anything you need. And if I don't see you before then, I will see you on December 8th at 2 o'clock.